scores a level.
Hello and welcome to Thursday Lines. I'm your host, OB. Thursday Lines is brought to you by Little Birdie TV and topsport.com.au, Punting Form and Comics Lounge, as we welcome MG. Another big round, or the round one of AFL got off to a flyer, and it was all good news from your end.
Yeah, everybody's happy.
AFL round one, MG, a draw first up, 4 new coaches win, third biggest crowd for a round ever, highlighted with 3 big MCG games. Suspension for head high to a couple of players, Pickett and also McAdams up in Adelaide. Plenty of talk there, and just some great wins. Collingwood were fantastic. Port Adelaide were excellent. So they're playing this week, so we'll get to that game later. GWS under the tutelage of Adam Kingsley. I'm an unabashed Adam Kingsley fan. And then there was St Kilda in quarter 4, but we won't mention the last 13 seconds, will we, MG? But a good round nevertheless.
Yeah, you basically covered that all in a nutshell. You've left me out of the conversation there. But yeah, it was a round of comebacks. There was 4 outstanding for anyone who bets live. There was a few utensils, I think, thrown at walls or TVs or whatever you have when you're watching. But yeah, there was...
Sounds like one might have ricocheted and hit you in the head the way you were going, the way you were reading people's tweets.
Oh, I couldn't believe the St Kilda game, seriously. I sweated out the whole last quarter of the game for the total, and to come down to basically a shank and then a snap in the square where they had 4 defenders around them to send the total over was unnecessary, I would have thought, for round one. But anyway, there's 5 TVs downstairs, so to lose one early is not unusual.
And Ron Joseph obviously passed away this week, and unbelievable football administrator, saved the Kangaroos. And Paul Roos actually said this week that Sydney wouldn't be where they were without Ron Joseph. And a bit of a story caught your eye overnight, MG?
Yeah, I was watching the Mike Sheehan open mic episode with Ron Joseph. I hadn't seen it before. I'm not sure if Toprope's seen it, but it's worthwhile watching because it's what made the brown paper bag famous, I think, in the AFL, which certain teams certainly followed into the 80s and even into the early 90s, I would have thought. But yeah, Toprope, not sure if you've seen it, but he actually pretty much bought North Melbourne the 1975, and then they went on to win the 77 Premiership, and he talks openly on the episode about he reckons time's elapsed now, so he was able to comfortably sit back in his chair and talk about that. He basically went round to players' houses and had lots of $10,000 in back in the 70s in brown paper bags, and basically said, come and play at North Melbourne. And they got the great man Ron Barassi to come and coach with some players like Blight and Cable and everything like that, and managed to win their first premiership. So yeah, it's a great story and a good watch.
I think he's been on the board of the Roosters for the last few years as well.
I was going to say, OB, I've never heard of this bloke. But good luck to him. But I'll give you the hot tip. As a sport built on poker machines, the brown paper bag's been instituted in rugby league a lot longer than the 1970s.
It's not a brown paper bag out there. It's the old plastic dollar bucket that you used to get. Oh, God. But Toprope, just back onto on-field, the Dolphins. Fins up, as I think they're commonly referred to now. 3-0. They play the Broncos, also 3-0 on Friday night. We will get to that game. Some close finishes. 5 of the 8 games finished 4 points or closer. Upsets galore, of which you declared one, the Titans over the Storm. It was another great week of NRL action.
Yeah, it was a super week, actually. We kicked off in style with a 38-34 game, or 34-30, the Storm, the Sea-Eagles game, which follows on the Ric Flair hit the 61 plus there, which is always fun. I know MG is a big fan of the Ric in that one, but big overs week, some cracking games. Yeah, probably highlighted by the Roosters South game. Wasn't as wild as the last one. We still saw a send-off. We still saw some sin-bin, some suspensions, plenty of blood, a bit of a fight, a little comeback, almost a 2-point field goal on the bell to send the game to golden points. So a cracking game, cracking week. The warm weather certainly played a role as well. Plenty of overs games, high scorers, with temperatures reaching very, very high numbers, and even seeing some drinks breaks and some extended half times.
It's good to see that last week we potted the NRL for not having enough points after the first couple of weeks, and it's amazing the pool you've got, OB. Not only have you got Gills here in the AFL, but you've obviously put a call through to Toprope's man PVL, and the scoring was elite on the weekend in the NRL. So
I'm not sure he has Gills here anymore, MG, because I saw a 58-all draw in the AFL, which must have been a real thrill to kick the season off.
A good game's a good game. Look, a draw is the fabric of AFL football, and it will remain for years to come. So as we look at the scores for AFL Round 1, MG, anything really catch your eye there?
Yeah, well, Toprope was excited for the first one, the 58-58. He actually texted me at one stage and says that half time. Fair point. It was.
You did tip the over, didn't you, MJ?
No, I stayed out of that game. Thank goodness. It was. It was a terrible game actually to start with. Carlton just dragged it into the mud, and very limited scoring. But hopefully they don't do that again this week. Just running through OB. The next game was as good as you get. So it was a good recovery from the AFL. The Collingwood Geelong game, where Collingwood again showed their form from previous year, where they just ran right in the fourth quarter, and Geelong just couldn't go with them. So excellent win there. 17th v 18th will leave that game alone, and it was a pretty poor game. The Kangaroos just getting the win, but no form out of that. Brisbane got smashed in Port Adelaide, led by 2 goals at halftime, and then get outscored by 11 goals in the second half to Port. They ran wild and had a big victory there. 2 tips for the week. We like Melbourne at the minus and Sydney at the minus. Both got the jobs done pretty comfortably. There was no stress in either of those games. It was good to see. And probably the match of the round, I guess, in terms of comeback and conditions. Toprope was talking about how hot it's been in the northern states. Well, I think they played in 35 or 37 degrees up there for the GWS game, and they had injuries galore and were 31 points down. Probably should have been closer to 50 in the second quarter and come back and got the victory. So that was unbelievable. The 2 games to finish out. Essendon beat a very poor Hawks. Your side, you're in for a long year. You might need to find a second side there.
No, I'm on the Dolphins.
Yes.
I'm Fins in. So I'm not following the AFL this year with the Hawks. I'm Fins in, and also the Giants. In Kingsley we trust.
Oh, you found a second side, the Giants.
Yeah,
that's all
so
right.
that's I'm on the I'm on the underdogs up there. So as we look at the AFL Round 1 stats, 4 from 9 favourites covered the line, 4 of 9. The over total 6 of 9. The home team 5 of 9. And the season stats obviously roll pretty consistently with that after round 1, as they normally do. But anything jump out at you there, MG?
No, it was a bookies week overall for both codes. I think, as Toprope mentioned earlier, there was a few upsets in the AFL. There definitely were some upsets. Some of the plungers also went awry in some of the games as well. The scoring was okay. I think everyone just assumed it was going to be, they were all going to be shootouts and stuff, but we managed to find a couple of under totals, especially that last game, that Freo St Kilda, where they just played a soccer style match.
Shocking game, wasn't it? But anyway, that's I think the good teams will score.
Yes,
and I think it showed that. And I think Carlton and Richmond, probably it was just a bit of a no team really wanted to lose more than win in a way. But I think the good teams will score, as you saw with Geelong and Collingwood, and also Port have got some firepower. As we look at the NRL scores for round 3, Toprope, as we've discussed, couple of beauties on Friday night. And then rolled into the rest of the weekend, and glad to see scoring was up.
Yeah, plenty of points last week, which was a little disappointing for those of us who don't mind the London play. But it was plenty of points there. The Eels game was a real shootout, real topsy-turvy game, that one. Dolphins Knights was in the balance till the end. Brings up the HIA. Jackson Hastings got taken out late, had to go off for 15 minutes. While the perpetrator got 10 minutes to the mid, so that was that game got out of hand at the death there. Close game most of the way. Roosters, Rabbitohs, absolute cracker. Rabbitohs jumped to a 10-0 lead. Looked like they were going to run away with it. Tremendous comeback by the Roosters just before half time there. Titans Storm 38-34, 72 points. Wow, but yeah, the Titans got the job done. Storm very disappointing. Hopeful turning around this week. Named Cameron Munster, but then Jerome Hughes suspended. So concerns at Melbourne still. Warriors Cowboys, a huge shock of the year so far outside of the Dolphins win over the Roosters, 12.5-point dogs, the Warriors, and got the chocolates against the Cowboys. Broncos Dragons, 18-all, tipped plus 12.5, 9 minutes to go, 18-all, 40-18. Well done. Dogs Tigers, another one, they were up 26-6 with 10 to go, minus 9.5, winning 26-22. And the Raiders got the job over the Sharks 24-20 in a spiteful game in which Royce Hunt, who was sin bin during the game and gave away a costly try, has come out and called Raiders prop Corey Horsburgh a wet-gutted dog, which was absolutely hysterical. So great moment in rugby league.
As we look at the round 3 stats for the NRL, 4 from 8 favourites covered the line 3 of 8. The over total was 6 of 8, and the home team 6 of 8 as well. As we look at the season stats, the one that sort of jumps out there, Toprope, is probably the covering the line. 9 of 24, only at 38%. Anything doing there?
If you back a favourite, if you consistently back favourites early in the year, first 4 rounds, the last 6 rounds 5 to 8, you're going to do your dosh. So you just cannot make a habit of backing favourites early in the season. You let the season shake out before you start getting it. There's a lot more between the teams early in the season there's a lot less between the teams early in the season than is often kind of factored in. So you'll kind of see in my tip sheet on here that I'll be tipping a lot of underdogs and there'll be a few favourites sprinkled in there. But yeah, certainly a time of year beyond the underdogs.
The golf on the weekend, first time PGA winner Taylor Moore. At 10 under wins the Valspar in a wild finish. Schenk and Spieth both bogeyed the final hole to miss the win and the playoff. So MG and Toprope, anything doing there?
Yeah, it was a hell of a finish at the Valspar. It was a good morning of golf as well, actually, because we had the Live tournament went to a 3-way playoff as well. So plenty doing, but Spieth will be pretty disappointed not to have walked away with the win there. But huge win from Taylor Moore. He's been knocking on the door for a little while, so that'll secure his playing rights for a couple of years. So well done to him.
And, of course, there's another tournament, the World Match Play in Austin, Texas this week. Any overnight tips or anyone sort of catch your eye overnight, Toprope?
Yeah, look, I've just finished watching some of the early morning games. I just finished up there, and young Kim was very good. Good night for the Aussies. We saw Adam Scott, who was down the entire match. Only time he led was when he drained a 26-footer on the last hole to beat Seamus Power. So he'll be very happy with that. Jason Day, former winner in there as well. Lucas Herbert played really well. So it's interesting. I absolutely love match play from a betting point of view. It's an absolute feast for the senses. So it's almost Brownlow night in terms of the first few rounds of how many bets you can have it. But plenty going on. I thought Scotty Sheffield was a touch disappointing. He's played it twice though and been in the final both times. So certainly wouldn't want to write him off. And Sung Jim, tied the big record for the biggest ever win, 1-8-6 over Maverick McNeely, who ironically recorded the biggest ever win the year before. So a bit going on, but early days.
Yeah, but right now it's time for Thursday Lions, brought to you by topsport.com.au, family owned and operated for 35 years. Bet with a bookie you can trust. Bet with topsport.com.au as we flash up the AFL Premiership prices. The Demons have come in a point or half a point, $5.50 last week into $5. The Cats have eased slightly, but I wouldn't be reading too much into that. And the ones that have been friendless have probably been the Brisbane Lions after round 1.
Yeah, not too much movement around. I'm surprised Geelong kind of got out. They did get out to $7 I saw, so they've just probably come back in that quarter point. But, not too much. You don't want to jump too much around in round 1. There's a few unders towards the bottom of the page here. I wouldn't be diving into sides like Freo and Carlton would be $11 at this stage. But, Melbourne, new favourites.
Yeah, Freo looked awful. As we look at your round 1 form there, MG, the AFL Stings package, it's available in the little Birdie.live shop. 4 from 1 early on, 15 unit bets, result of just over 208 there. The POT plus 13.87. The season 4 and 3 unit bets, all ticking along nicely. How'd you see your round 1 form, MG?
Grinding. It was
It's not great. It's not great when someone says they're grinding.
I just haven't digested the bad beat yet. It's just unnecessary round 1 to really cop that. I think I'd consumed half a dozen bottles of water in the last quarter trying to play defense, and then I get that cheap goal. But no, it was listen. The 2 wins on the lines were good. I thought Melbourne and Sydney both were the standouts of the week, so they both got the job done. And then major bet in the total was the Freo one, the last one. So positive start. So we'll get on to week 2 and see how we go.
As we look at the NRL Premiership prices, anyone sort of firming there? I know that the Panthers and the Roosters have both been early picks. The Broncos have probably come in a notch or two, and still no fins up on the first page of betting. But wait till this Friday night, they might be there.
Broncos big shortness. They're well and truly in from kind of around that 12-13 mark pre-season to 850 unbeaten. Looked very, very good. Roosters, they kind of widely consider that they're back after their win last week. And of course, the big drifters, Melbourne Storm, out to $11. Probably opened the year at around the $6 quote. By the time round one lob, they're about $8.50 with news about Pappenhausen. Out the back door to $11. So, I was seeing the tighten up as well. They've had two good weeks, dominant over the Bulldogs, and then put on 38 against the Eels after a bye. So, Tom Todorovic playing good. Josh Schuster looked really good at 5'8" last week. So, plenty of interest in Manly at this stage.
And the money train continues in the GGOA package. 3 of 6 for round 3. The unit bet's 14.5, as we can see on the screen. But what I want to go to is the bottom line. The season tally, 14 wins, 7 losses, and the POT, 40.56%. If you haven't signed up yet, do yourself a favour and jump into Little Birdie live shop and get right amongst it at Toprope, just ticking along nicely.
Yeah, well, we're ticking along nicely. I'll tell you what, it's going to go one of two ways this week because we have the biggest ever week of the GGOA in terms of bets. I've probably left a couple out. I thought we were just getting too silly right here. I've rarely encountered a week where I've lost more, which has me deeply, deeply concerned. But look, if all keeps continuing as it should, we've not done anything different. We haven't gone looking for bets this week, but had a big, big week. MG probably knows the exact number of units tipped out, but there's been plenty. I think nearly every game gets something in there. So if you want to jump on, you could pay for the season this week.
Beautiful. As we look at the first match of AFL action, is a beauty tonight. Carlton 2.35 against the Cats, $1.60. The line 8.5, over under 166.5. Not sure which way you're leaning here, MG, but I like the Blues.
Yeah, well, it must be your money that's shaping this market because they opened around the 11 plus 11.5 Carlton here, and they're into plus 8.5. So the market agreeing with you so far. But I'm just on the other side. Actually, I was speaking to Toprope just before the show. He was looking for angles into his doubles, of course, for a Thursday night. And I think Geelong's getting to a price myself. At the start of the week, it was probably no bet. But yeah, if the money continues for Carlton, I'm going to favour Geelong slightly on this. And the reasons why is, the history of the stats is Carlton have basically beaten Geelong 4 times in 2 decades. So it's, it's alarming stats. And more recently, it's 10-2 to the Cats. So they don't like playing Geelong Carlton. And also the other thing I like about it is Geelong are 6-0 off a loss, covering the line. So they do bounce back well. And they didn't play bad against Collingwood for 3 quarters. It was as good as match as you want to see. And they just either didn't show up in the last quarter or Collingwood just ran right. But for 3 quarters, they were very good. If both of them played how they played in the first week, then Geelong will be winning this comfortably. Some of the concerns for Geelong is T. Stewart out in defence. Massive injury on the back of trying to cover both Curnow and Mackay. So I know why you like Carlton for that reason. And that coupled up with Henry already being out just stretches their back half. So if Carlton can get enough supply forward, they might cause problems in the back half for Geelong. Saying that, Hewitt is out for Carlton, which I think is an equally big as loss to their midfield on the back of Walsh not being there. And I just think it leaves them a bit vulnerable in the mids to get it through. And the thing that worries me watching the replays from last week is Carlton just move the ball too slowly. So if they do that against Geelong, with Geelong's structure of how they don't play a man-on-man defence. They're very much third man up. Carlton just won't be able to penetrate the Geelong defence for mine enough to kick a winning score. So they're going to have to get on their bike a bit more, Carlton. So that's left me out of the total. But yeah, I think the way it's going, I think if everything comes through from round 1, I think Geelong will get the job done.
As we look to the NRL action tonight, it's the Eels and the Panthers. The Eels, 3.10. The Panthers, $1.37. The line, 8 points even, over under 39.5. The big Western Sydney rivalry here, Toprope. The Panthers have been slightly disappointing and the Eels have been probably worse. Any hope the Eels of turning this one around?
Yeah, big hope. Love the Eels this week. Yes, most of the season, but jumping on 0-3 start. Penrith get the advantage of coming off a bye here, but they looked pretty rusty. Even in their win in South, they were kind of buckled down a bit defensively, but they still looked reasonably rusty from mine. Penrith certainly had the wood on the Eels. Of course, won last year's grand final in Canter, won 6 of the last 8, 4 of the last 8 wins by 16 plus. But big early season home underdogs. I'm getting 4 points, round 1 to 4, cover 66%. Last 2 years, round 1 to 4, home underdogs at 8 or more, 4-0 against the spread. Road favourites off a win, round 1 to 4, cover 41%. Eels covered 15 of 21 or scoring 30 plus. Give me the Eels in this one.
Beautiful. Oh, I love when you get into stats. Oh, it really gets me going. As we look at the Friday night game in the AFL, unfortunately, no one will be watching the NRL because everyone will be watching the Brisbane Lions at $1.98 against the Demons at $1.82. The line 1.5, over under 171.5. It's up in Brisbane. There's a festival of sport on a Friday night in Brisbane, but everyone will be watching this one and no one will be watching that other sport. MG, I like the Lions here. Which way are you looking?
Yeah, on the bounce back factor in this game.
Yeah, bounce back factor.
Like it. Yeah, it's what's keeping this game close. As you can see, it's bounced around between Melbourne 1 and 2, so it's a pretty solid market. Brisbane can't play any worse than what they did Port Adelaide. They did not show up at all down there, and they would have been stung during the week. They've had a lot of media on them and stuff like that. So to lead by 2 goals at halftime and then lose by 9 is disgraceful for a team who thinks they're in the premiership window. So they will have to show something against Melbourne. Unfortunately, they're coming up against a Melbourne side that were deadly against a pretty good side that think they'll play finals. They beat the Bulldogs by 50 points, and they were probably
sharp.
Yeah, they were probably one of the better performed sides.
Absolutely.
And on top of that, unfortunately, unfortunately for Brisbane, is Melbourne likely to get 4 players back in Viney, May, Fritz is coming back, and also Salem will probably come back into halfback length if they all fit in. So Melbourne are pretty much full tilt as well. On the back of that, stat-wise, I think Melbourne have won 9 of 10 night games v Brisbane, and they've also won their last 12 interstate games, so they travel very well. So that doesn't bode well for Brisbane.
Last game was a semi-final loss in the MCG to the Lions where they trounced them. But,
so that can go 2 ways. It can give Brisbane a bit of confidence that they perform well against Melbourne, but also there might be a bit of revenge factor that they did knock Melbourne out in straight sets last year.
Two worries for the Lions. I reckon Harris Andrews, I can't see him. He hasn't got back to that All-Australian form, and something has to give with Eric Hipwood as well. I'd bring Darcy Ford in, but Fagan loves Hipwood. But
I just think on form, if Brisbane don't have the bounce back factor as you said, I think Melbourne are a great price in this game, just with the stats and how well they're going. It's going to be hard to bet against Brisbane at home with obviously coming off a really poor loss. I don't like getting involved too much, but just on pure stats and doing watching the videos, you think Melbourne are absolute morals.
Yeah. As we look at the Friday night, I think the big tussle up in NRL is the Finns up, the Dolphins $3.70, the Broncos $1.28, the line 11.5, over under 44.5. This looks a beauty. Toprope. It's just a shame I've got to tape it and watch it on Saturday morning. But it looks a beauty on paper.
I told me these days you're an NRL man, OB, so you can try and play your constituency all you like. We all know that the Finns will be front and centre on your TV, as they will with everyone north of the Murray. Huge game, absolutely huge game. Vince McMahon would have done well to schedule this as well as he has. Both teams 3-0. Wayne Bennett up and about. He's already got the Broncos on the back foot. Kevin Walters. We're not rivals with the Dolphins. Blah blah blah. Massive number in this one, plus 11.5. I don't see how you're not with the Dolphins in this one. It's they've lost Felice Kafusi. That'd be out. He's certainly been the defensive leader. He set the standard. Brandon Smith took a couple of weeks to bounce back after he had his ribs rattled in round 1. So angles here. Look, this is both their home ground. So take this with a grain of salt, but home underdogs are 4 or more in the first 4 rounds, 66%. Dolphins have covered all 3 of their games. Broncos covered just 2 of the last 6 at Suncorp. Very lucky to cover last week too. It's one of their last 6 of a poor defensive performance, covering conceding 18 plus. So I'm going to be the Dolphins in this one, hoping that we'll get a little bit of plus 12. But I certainly would be touching. I'd be happy with the plus 11.5. and we're having a little splash at the head-to-head too.
Fins up. The AFL game on Saturday afternoon looks an absolute beauty. The Magpies $1.53, Port Adelaide $2.45. The line minus 10.5, over under 171.5. The big news out of this is that the Power are offering $170 return bus fares from Adelaide to Melbourne just to come over for the game. I could not think of anything worse, sitting on a bus with Port Adelaide supporters, but a big crowd is expected. Be free-flowing football on a Saturday afternoon at the G. Looks a beauty, MG.
Yeah, there'll be plenty of room for the Port Powers to get into the G as well, because they do old Ungie. But yeah, no, this game's got all the ingredients. As an OB, both off massive wins round one. They both scored north of 125 points offense as well, what you're talking about before with fast footy. And the history dictates that these two, really do dislike each other. So, they're both in good health. I think, unfortunately for Collingwood, Howe broke his arm in round one, so he'll be missing for a couple of months. But the rest of the side looks pretty good. Ginnivan's the only one actually missing out of that, and Port are pretty much full strength, and Boak will come back in on top of that win. So it's a good inclusion for Port. It's a bit hard, this. I think the market's spot on here. Hard to pick a side, minus 10.5. Hard to go against Collingwood. They've won 11 of the last 12 at the MCG. But offsetting that is that the games that Collingwood are involved in, 14 of the last 17, the underdogs covered the spread. So very hard to pick a side there. Can't go against Collingwood at home, but the way they both played round one is hard to stick out. But the play for me in this is the over. I just think the bookies misstepped a little, putting up 165.5 at the start of the week, and couldn't hold back and jumped into that. It's jumped up to 170 now, and I think if it does move off this mark, it'll only go one way. I just think the weather looks pretty good. The points, the way they move the football both sides, there'll be plenty of goals, and I think 165 is cheap, and I still think it's a bet at 170.
I saw both coaches on AFL 360 on Monday night, and they said, or Monday or Tuesday night, they said it's going to be an all-out attacking game, they were both talking up about getting the crowd there, and there will be a beauty on Saturday afternoon.
Hope they're right.
Yeah, as we look to the Saturday night NRL clash, the Bunnies at $1.60 against the Sea Eagles $2.35, the line -4, the over/under 44.5. The Bunnies haven't been the punters' greatest friend early stages, and then the Seabold factor for the Sea Eagles is just kicking into gear. Which way are you leaning here, Toprope?
Yeah, a few storylines this one. Not only the Seabold factor has a fair few with South, and South coach Jason Demetriou absolutely hates him. But sport is a funny way of doing this. But legendary rugby league figure John Sattler passed away this week. Sattler, of course, most famous for playing 74 minutes of the 1970 grand final with not only a broken jaw, but a jaw so badly broken that the only way he could hold his face in was to bite down at his mouth guard. And when reporters spoke to him in the dressing room after the game, he thought he'd got it all put back into place. He opened his mouth, and the bottom part of his face, almost fell off. So that's how bad he played. That's the courage he played with and personified. And funnily enough, the team that broke his jaw, Manly, and they are scheduled this week. So there's probably no more prouder club in the NRL, a club that respects the history more than the South Sydney Rabbitohs. There is absolutely no chance in hell they are not 100% geared up for this one. Sattler is not only a larger-than-life figure at the Rabbitohs, he is a larger-than-life figure in rugby league, and they will be up and about for this. Absolutely love South in this one. Not only to that reason, they've covered 7 of 8 of a loss at Acor, 10 of 15 off conceding 20+. Manly 10 of 25 against the Spurs of Rowan Dog. Money's been for Manly, but South of the betting.
I love it. I've actually got goosebumps. Yeah, fantastic. Especially when you're talking about an immortal of the game, and then also the mighty Bunnies sort of gets me going. As we whip through the final 5 NRL games for the weekend. The Storm $1.33 against the West Tigers $3.35. The line -9.5, over under 42.5. Both teams have been very disappointing, but West Tigers look a bit rudderless. Toprope.
Oh, they're all over the shop at the moment. First thoughts were I've done the Tigers, and Munster was named. Hughes is out. Don't really know how to play this game. I still don't know that we'll. I won't be betting this game until now for KFC whether Munster does indeed play. Probably leaning the over, but this would be the game I'd be leaving out if I was not having a bet in round 4.
And the other Queensland derby is the Cowboys $1.45 against the Titans $2.75. The line -7.5, over under 44.5. they're sort of in the shadow of the big Queensland clash. But this one will be a good one. Top rope.
Yeah, we'll be our 5:30 kickoff on a Saturday, which is the first game, which is a bit unusual. But Cowboys have been really bad, losing home to the Warriors, but numbers kind of favour them a little bit. 10 of 13 against the spread, the favourite 6.5 or more, and one big angle. Home favours are 6.5 or more to loss of 13 plus. Cover at 64%, so leaning the Cowboys here.
And the early game on Sunday sees the Warriors $1.74 against the Bulldogs 2.10. The line minus 1.5, over under 42.5. I know the Bulldogs have got some injuries, and the Warriors hit a bit of form last week.
Bulldogs are the better team here, a far better team than the Warriors. But Warriors back at Mount Smart. They're certainly lifted for those. It's covered 3 of the last 4. So leaning towards the Bulldogs. Plenty of good judges I know, like the Dogs in this one. I'm probably a little bit more tempered in my enthusiasm there, but very, very keen on a bet here. That is the under. The under is 23-11 when round 4 favourites or home favourites off a win. The under, 65% Warriors day games, 63% Bulldogs day games, 11-3 with the Dogs off a win. I'll be backing the under with a good degree of confidence.
As we look to the middle game on Sunday, the Knights at 2.80, the Raiders $1.44, the Lions 7.5, over under 42.5. Top rope.
Utterly stupid line this one. Got to do the Knights plus 7.5. Big home underdogs are always a bet this time of year. Usually you're against a good team. I'm not sure the Raiders are that good team. They've got a few injuries. They've been pretty ordinary this year. Knights have covered 9 of 11 against the Raiders, 10 to puddle. Knights have been decimated by injuries, suspensions. They're no good at all. But I could not be laying 7.5 points for the Raiders with a gun to my head. So I'll be on Newcastle plus 7.5.
As we look to the last game of round 4 is the Battle of the Shire. The Dragons $2.65, the Sharks $1.48, the Lions 6.5, over under 44.5. Top rope.
Yeah, like the Dragons. This one, like the Dragons a lot again. Yeah, it's a bit repetitive, but we're big early season home underdogs. Dragons also covered 8 of 9 at Cogger, 5 of 6 at Cogger as a dog at the ground. Look, Sharks have had the wood on the Dragons, so tempering it a little bit there. But yeah, I think the Dragons have been pretty good in both their games, bar kind of 10-minute patches at the start of the Titans game, the end of the Broncos game. But I'll be happy to take the big start at home. I'm not sure the Sharks are going that well either.
As we look to the other 5 AFL games on this weekend, the Crows $2.40, the Tigers $1.55, the Lion 8.5. Over under 174.5. Anything, MG?
Yeah, both disappointing. As we said, Adelaide coughed up a big lead round 1 and Richmond played in a pretty ordinary draw against Carlton. I just think I like Richmond here. I think the line's too cheap at minus 8.5. I know they're playing away from home. Key factor for me here is the heat factor. A 6-day break for Adelaide coming off the heat. They just completely ran out of gas at GWS. And I think the way Richmond play, they run and gun, they'll want to turn this into a basketball-style game. And I just think with Richmond, they've got a 9-day break. They'll a lot of time to prep for this. I was hoping the total would be a bit lower. I thought there'd be points in this game, but the bookies pretty much nailed it at 174. It's hard to tip in the over, but yeah, Richmond minus 8 for me. I'm pretty keen.
And the Bulldogs and the Saints on Saturday night at the Dome. The Bulldogs $1.47, the Saints $2.60, the line minus 13.5, over under 162.5.
Yeah, tough game to assess here. The Bulldogs absolutely smashed round 1 by Melbourne, losing by 50 points. And Kilda played pretty much out of their minds to beat Freo. Freo, they were chips all in and didn't get the job done. And Rossi lying back in the chair just turned it into a bit of a slugfest. Bulldogs back at Marvel, big difference for me. They've won 8 of the last 10 there, where at the G they've lost 4 or 5. So, just put a line through their loss to Melbourne at this stage and see the bounce back factor. Still hard to get involved with. I'm not sure. I'm not convinced with the Bulldogs. There's something missing. There's something wrong with their side. I'm not sure if it's the coach, but something's not wrong. They lose Lob. I just can't entertain a bet. I can't come to St Kilda either, with St Kilda only winning 1 of their last 8 against the Lions. So I'll stay out of this one.
Fremantle North, Melbourne over in Perth. The Dockers $1.14, the Kangaroos $5.25, the line minus 31.5, over under 158.5. Don't know about this one.
It's going to be hard watching the replay as well. But yeah, early money all for the Dockers, which you expect. They opened 28.5 up to 31. I think the market will probably trend towards Freo as the week goes on. The bounce back factor again, Freo have won 4 straight against the Kangaroos, average winning margin 68 points. So they have enjoyed recent success against the Kangaroos, and I think that will continue as Kangaroos have only won 1 out of 8 in March for covering the spread.
Oh, God. And as we look to the Sunday games, 3 probably not the best games on a Sunday, but that's all right. The Swans $1.07 and the Hawks $7.50. The line minus 41.5, over under 164.5.
There's not much love for your Hawks, is there? Well, I mean, Sydney were dominant round one. Probably played a similar side and crushing the Gold Coast. Even though there was support for the Gold Coast, they got the job done by north of 50, and then Hawthorn go out and lose by the similar margin. They lost 10 goals to Essendon, so hard to entertain. I think the line will continue to go. It hasn't really moved too much, but it was a big line to start with, 39 to 40. I think this will comfortably move into the 40s here. With the weather is probably the only thing holding back at this stage. It is being Sydney, so it loves to rain up there, but if the weather stays true, I think Sydney could put a big margin on this. Hard to tip a minus 40 line, though. So it'll just be a watch, and hopefully Hawthorn show up and show something.
Essendon Gold Coast at the Dome. The Bombers $1.57. Gold Coast $2.35. The line minus 10.5. Over under 171.5. If Gold Coast are to play finals, they need to win these games. So I don't know why the market is like that. I think everyone's a bit happy with the Bombers.
You got too much money if you think the Gold Coast are going to play finals. But
if people are tipping them, they have to win games like this. That's the bottom line. But
I don't know who was tipping them to play finals, because they won't. They're not good enough. It's just I don't know why people entertain the Gold Coast until they put any kind of runs on the board. Coming down to Essendon at the Dome's not helping them round 2. Essendon were impressive. I know they only played Hawthorn, so you got to take that with a grain of salt, but. Yeah, they've won 9 straight against the Gold Coast as favourites, and they've won 9 out of their last 12 head-to-head, so I don't see much hope for the Gold Coast here. The only thing is that in March, Essendon have got off to very ordinary starts. They've only won 1 out of 9 and covering the spread as well. So, but last year they beat the Gold Coast 103 to 55, so I think there could be a similar score. I'm warming to Essendon. I think minus 10 is a decent bet myself, but it sounds like I might be able to wager with you. And
I doubt anyone will be watching the last game of the round. It's the Eagles at $2, the Giants at $1.77, the line minus 3.5, over under 164.5.
You sound like you're going to play golf or something on Sunday. You're not watching any of these 3 games. No. This game's hard to get in Thursday. The thing that keeps me off the Giants in this is obviously the travel factor to Perth is not great. Coming off the heat as well, the effort that it took to get over Adelaide, I'm not sure how much that will take out of them. They don't have a short week, but the travel over there. But you can't come into even West Coast at the moment. They've lost 28 of their last 32 games. West Coast, they're going terrible. GWS have won the last 2 against West Coast in fine style. The problem is the Giants is hard to entertain when you lose Kelly and Whitfield out of your side on top of Perryman. So those injuries aside and stuff, I'm just going to live and learn on this one. The play might be with the weather. The total 165 at the moment. I think it's a shade too low. If you're having a good week, I'd maybe chime into the over and see if they can both score. And just a reminder, the AFL stings are available for $25 a week in the littlebirdie.live shop for all your AFL betting action, and the GGOA, which is absolutely on fire at the moment, $33 a week in the littlebirdie.live shop for your NRL betting action. Thank you, Toprope. We're going to say when we leave you, mate, just fins up.
Fins up all the way.
Absolutely. And MG, have a great week for AFL round 2. That's a wrap for this week's Thursday Lines. Thanks to MG and Toprope. You can follow us on YouTube, find us in the Apple Store, on Spotify, on SoundCloud, wherever you listen to all your good podcasts. You can follow at Little Birdie TV on Twitter or on the gram. Remember, all your footy betting action can be found at topsport.com.au. Join us next week as we look at the football betting action in depth once again. Punt well, punt responsibly, and have a great weekend, punters.